Joining us now, we've got Angelo Zino, Senior Equity Analyst, CFRA Research. Angelo, thank you for joining us this Friday. All right, let's go through some of these numbers from Apple. The stock is under some pressure in the pre-market. They did beat on the top and bottom line, but again, the takeaway that I see from some analysts is about it missed, according to some metrics, on China, and then obviously it flagged the tariff impact. EPS $1.65 a share, revenue topping $95 billion. iPhone revenue was pretty strong at more than $46.8 billion. What's your overall takeaway initially, Angelo?
Yeah, so thanks for having me, Diane. Overall takeaway, I'd say companies executing as well as it can in a very, very difficult environment and very low visibility here over the next couple of quarters. So to your point, they did beat on the top and the bottom line. Again, very solid. Guidance was relatively in line on the revenue side of things. Gross margins are taking a bit of a hit because of a $900 million tariff hit for the June quarter. And then, I'd say also on the guidance side of things, they didn't provide any guidance for services. And to me, that's a little bit disturbing and disappointing because of the fact that, they historically are able to provide guidance on services. It's typically a very good visible business for them. But just given some of the uncertainties out there, whether it be tariff related, or whether it be related to uncertainties from a regulatory perspective, I think they decided to hold back on providing that type of guidance.
That's an interesting point that you make, because you would think that services would be more insulated when you think of the pressure from tariffs, because, it's not like we can tariff services at this point. I don't know if we could, if there's a way to do that. Do you think that is more of a reflection of potentially deteriorating macro conditions?
Yeah, I think that's a valid point. I think it could be. I think also you've got this Epic Games case going on right now and uncertainty tied to that. Who knows what certain changes that they're going to have to make on the App Store side of things. So I think they just decided to hold back on providing that type of guidance. Also, when you look at other drivers to the services business, it is stuff like advertising, right? And to your point, there are macro implications tied to that. So historically, or over the last several quarters or so, their guidance has been kind of low teens growth on the services side of things. My expectation here over the next couple of quarters, maybe you have to temper that a little bit and maybe go mid-high single digit range.
Okay, and so do you think that signals basically growing margin pressure overall?
That and the combination of tariffs, right? There's about a 5 to 6 cent EPS impact here from the tariffs just in the June quarter. There's more uncertainty as we go thereafter. Apple's actually exempt from the tariffs right now, outside of that 20% fentanyl tariff tied to China. But when you kind of look at the commentary right now, all the U.S. iPhone demand essentially is coming from India right now. They're not going to be able to do that as we go into the holiday selling season. You're going to need to probably tap into China a little bit, and then again, we'll see what the 232 semiconductor investigation output throws out there for Apple. But if we're talking, so they're not able to provide any visibility past the June quarter because we don't know what that tariff is going to look like on the semiconductor investigation.
Yeah, look, to be fair, no one really knows. Especially besides the butting heads of the U.S. and China. Yes, we have that 90-day pause elsewhere, but that lifts in July. Then where do we go? Do we get an extension of the pause? Is there a further timeout? So that's a great point there. But when you think about the production shift that they're making, they emphasize that, right? That shift they're making to India, to Vietnam. How far along do you think they are in terms of de-risking that supply chain exposure to China?
So they did highlight right now over half of their U.S. needs for iPhones are coming from India, and that was higher than I anticipated, to be honest with you. So they're further along than I actually thought. And then when you think about all the other U.S. needs in terms of on the hardware side of things, the Macs, the iPads, and wearables, that is coming from other areas of Southeast Asia. So as of right now, I think by the end of next year, the hope is the majority of U.S. needs for iPhones does come from India, if not all of it. But that's going to be a tall task for a company like this to kind of migrate that as fast as that. But again, I think de-risking from China is going to be a critical story here for Apple.
No, I think you're absolutely right. That is a critical story. And even the sales picture was still critical, clearly, with some disappointment over the sales out of China. Quick 30-second final thought on the latest results from Apple, Angelo.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think when we sit here today, a lot of uncertainty, a lot of, no visibility for the company. I think when we sit here a year from now, things are going to be different. We're going to be talking about Apple being able to successfully pass through higher costs through rising prices. I think we're also going to be talking about new form factors a year from now. I think we're going to be potentially talking about them being able to retract some of those higher costs from those tariffs as well, on top of hopefully getting AI right at that point in time. So I think you almost have to look through the fog here over the next 3 to 6 months. But I definitely understand kind of some of the investor frustration right now on the shares.
All right. Yeah, shares under pressure right now in the pre-market. That's Angelo Zino, Senior Equity Analyst, CFRA Research.